Jessica, good to hear from you as always. Jessica Missouri, our correspondent in New York. Let's bring in Aaron David Miller, Senior Fellow at the Carnegie Endowment for International Peace and former State Department Middle East analyst and negotiator in both Republican and Democratic administrations. Great to have you on the programme this evening, Aaron. A number of things have happened during that and after as well. President Trump having a kind of doorstep moment with reporters saying, I think we got a deal in Gaza. Didn't elaborate too much, perhaps not surprisingly. What was your take, not just on the speech itself, but the kind of choreographed moment, having the speakers on the Israeli-Gaza border as well?
The speech was, first of all, Benjamin Netanyahu fashions himself an international statesman. He prides himself in his capacity to articulate. He's been extremely effective. I remember one of my former bosses, Madeleine Albright, described him as the American Newt Gingrich. A prime minister can be very persuasive in English and in Hebrew, and he laid out his case. I don't think there was any expectations on his part that this would be received well, let alone warmly. You saw that from the walkout, a few jeers here and there. Look, the speech was fine in terms of what he wanted to accomplish, to tell, quote unquote, his version of the truth. The only thing that matters, frankly, is his capacity to persuade a constituency of one. And that is the President of the United States, who over the last almost 9 months now, more than 9 months, I think, has basically acquiesced in Netanyahu's both tactics and strategy in Gaza. And the real question to me is whether or not he can persuade the president, even with this 21-point plan, to give Netanyahu more time. He's repeatedly said this, that with more time, we can eliminate Hamas not just as a military organization, but make sure that it has zero influence in Gaza. It'll be disarmed. Maybe its leaders will be exiled. And then we'll be able to have a day after, and he laid out what the day after would look like. Free the hostages, more humanitarian assistance, with Israel maintaining the overall security responsibility for Gaza. I think he referred to a non-Hamas, maybe Palestinian technocratic government joined by members of the international community.
Well, which takes us on to two things. First of all, let's talk about President Trump, because if we go back 24 hours where he talked about in his speech, and remember a point that you've just made, it's as capricious as we talk about the President Trump can be and the different types of people he can be influenced by. He was sitting with President Erdogan, who was a word in the ear, the first time in 6 years that those two had sat down together. And we know his views against Benjamin Netanyahu and against the continuing conflicts in Gaza. And President Trump told reporters he would not allow the continuation, annexation of the West Bank. And I just wonder, your point to the fact that he's had a welcome audience, Benjamin Netanyahu, with President Trump before. Do you sense that's changing?
It's really hard to say the mercurial nature of this particular president. I mean, look at his about face, if that, in fact, what it is with respect to Vladimir Putin and Ukraine, now arguing that Ukraine can win and reclaim all of its territory, probably a fantasy. I think President Trump, like most of the presidents I worked for, is reluctant, to say the least, to create a major breach. There have been tensions between Israeli prime ministers and American presidents and secretaries of state before, Democrats and Republicans. I don't think Trump has reached the point yet where, in fact, he sees Benjamin Netanyahu as an obstacle to something that he wants. And remember, this is a president who measures a success or failure not in terms of the American national interest, but in terms of his political, financial interests, his vanities, his pet peeves and pet projects. Has he concluded that he can, in fact, get a Nobel? He talks about it constantly. And if he does conclude that, if ending the war in Gaza and building a bridge to some political horizon for Palestinians, a small state, a confederation, something, would allow Saudi Arabia to normalize and recognize Israel, then I think he'd be interested in bringing pressure on Benjamin Netanyahu. But until he persuades himself, and I don't think he's there yet, that there's something in it for him. Remember, Trump talks in terms of the me, not the we. And I think until that day comes, maybe it'll come on Monday, that he'll say enough. I think we're going to see more of the same.
Aaron, can I get your brief thoughts as well on a name that's come up, and perhaps Benjamin Netanyahu was going towards this area today, a governor for Gaza, a transitional authority ahead, potentially, not ruling himself out, Tony Blair?
Yeah, I mean, look, I don't think the who, frankly, is important here. It's the what that counts. It's the what in answering the three core questions. Who or what's going to govern Gaza? Who or what is going to provide security and law and order? And who or what is to begin the tortuously complicated process of trying to repair Gaza and reconstruct it? That's what counts. And the three parties that count here, one is the Prime Minister of Israel, two is a putative Palestinian leader, and number three is Donald Trump. If Tony Blair's plan makes sense, and if two of the three parties to this triangle buy off on it, whether it involves Tony Blair or doesn't, frankly, is irrelevant. The question is, will it work? And will the leaders who are charged with implementing it, not just conceiving it, implementing it, will they put the political will and muscle behind it?
Aaron, good to talk to you tonight. Aaron David Miller, a senior fellow at the Carnegie Endowment for International Peace. Thank you. Former State Department Middle East analyst and negotiator.